So in your house file, the thing that you should be aware of is, oh, this isn't the right one. Hold on. Untitled 2. All right, so in your house file, the one that's actually complete and has your full enclosure, which mine does not, you should be at a point where you're ready to import it, right? So, and by import it, I mean we're actually going to take this model and put it on our landscape. And so you'll have to refer back to your diagrams, the diagrams that I don't have loaded, but maybe I'll load it up for one of the later videos. But anyway, the best way to control that, and this is a best practices conversation, is to delete the other information in your drawing except for the information that you want to import. Or you could just do a copy paste. But so I think import is more reliable, but I'll show you both methods anyway. In fact, I'll get another Rhino started so that you can see both. So in this one, I'm going to open and see if I can find where I put my original landscape. Yeah, I went to open because I'm just going to my landscape right now. I have to find where I put it though. There we go. What was this one? And I want to give you guys a heads up about these two landscapes here. For some reason, there were a few of you that were having trouble zooming in and making small models with this particular version of the landscape, which I don't understand why, because it's nothing more than a scale 1D, and I just made it taller. But you probably should just delete that and work on this one only. Okay, so this is my landscape, and in the other file I have my actual house file. So I'm going to get rid of some of this extra geometry I've got. I want to get rid of all of my curves because I'm going to be working with a lot of curves as I'm, working on this. So I did SEL CRV, select curve, and then just hit delete, and it got rid of all of the extraneous curves in my model. If you have layers turned off, you should turn that on first before doing that. So if you're following along with the video side of this later on, this is a good point, I guess, to just kind of like stop and go through the process of doing that. At this point, it's a very clean model, just model elements, no curves, ready to export. So I'm going to save as, and I guess I'm going to make another folder for it. For the retreat, and I'll make another folder for, you can call it exports or trash. I usually call it dump. It's for files that are not used for the actual final product, but you need as a support. You can call it supporting documents or something like that. So I'll call it house. Then I go back into my landscape file and go to File, Import.
When I open my page, another my page is going to show, so trying to keep it both open.
I'll have to come take a look at it. Can I finish this thought? So go to File, Import, and locate your file, and then hit Open. Okay, there it is. It's very, very tiny. And let me see if I can zoom out enough to find it. Alright, so I can't find it. I'll do an SELALL for select all, then do a ZS for zoom select. And so there's the difference. I've got one here. Oh, I lost it again. SELALL CS. Weird. So it looks like my origin's a little off, so I'll try relocating it to the origin. Move it to 0, 0, 0. Zoom select. Zoom select. All right. There we go. So there's my house. And there's the mountain. So to make this a little bit easier on myself so I don't lose any of this geometry, I'm going to do a group on it. Okay. So now this is a tiny little box that's floating around as a group on my mountain, and I need to reference where it's actually going to go on the landscape. So I'm ballparking this. I don't have my actual model open, but I believe I selected this as my outlook spot because this is the peak here, and I wanted something that was going to overlook in both directions. So I wanted up here so that it looks off in the eastern direction, and then same here so that it looks off in the western direction as well. So what I'm going to do is move. Well, let me ZS. You're going to need a lot of ZS's if you're working with something this small. So I'm going to move that element, and if you have near on, it should allow you to drop it on top of the surface. And it did not. All right. So if it didn't do that, let's do it by trimming. Alright, so here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to establish a rectangle here that's in plan that goes around the other peak. Extrude curve. I do not want this to be solid, and I'm going to pull it up above the mountain. So my goal here is to have the peak, which is right here, and you can click it and just kind of look at it like that. So as long as that peak is still in the box, you're good. And the peak that I'm putting my house on, it's right there. So this should be a good little trim. Slide it down like that. Trim. Enter, trim that off. So that makes it at least a little bit easier to hone in on that spot, and so I'm going to do this in a little bit more of an analog fashion. So I'm going to pull it over that way, pull it over this way, go into my front view, pull it up just above the landscape, and then just start taking a look at where it's landing. Okay, so it's not quite right there, so I'll slide it over there. It's getting a little closer. Alright, so now it's kind of sitting pretty much on top of the mountain, right? So this is where you're going to anchor your building to start looking at where it's going to cut into the hillside. You're kind of noticing now that this is incredibly small, right? That's okay. So you want to keep a little bit of the context around you so that you can actually produce a rendering in some cases. Like if I wanted to show from the peak where my building is, well, it's right there. So I could do a rendering and put the mountainous landscape behind it and all that other good stuff. So that's just a thought on contextualization of this kind of project. So I'm actually going to stop this particular recording here, and then I'm going to start showing you how do you actually cut into the landscape and take that axonometric section that you're looking for. So are there any questions on this so far? Pretty simple, right? It's just import and move it around and stuff.